Star Trek has reinvented itself successfully time and again, while Star Wars has only gotten worse. When Star Wars burst onto the scene in 1977, it took America by storm. Capitalizing on the era of the space race, Lucas broke out with a compelling script, memorable characters, and pushed the edges of special effects technology. For his effort, Lucas became known as a legendary filmmaker and became the pope of the fanboys, but to their chagrin his glory faded. In the attempted rebirth of the franchise with The Phantom Menace, dedicated Star Wars fans young and old lined up loyally outside theaters to experience the magic as if for the first time. But it was all for naught. Phantom Menace was hokey, plain, and thankfully forgettable. Its plot was weak, and despite its A-list cast, the characters were listless and boring. Fans began to wonder if Lucas still had the magic. By the time Clone Wars came out, fanboys were ready to believe again. Diligently they lined up, and one after one left the theater with balled-up fists and frustrated hearts. How could the movie be so bad that it made them long for more Jar Jar Binks and his pseudo-racist catchphrases? After much pondering, the truth became obvious. Lucas was both the catalyst and cancer to the incredible Star Wars project. Once the anchor of its creativity, he was now the shoals upon which its ship must crash. Revenge of the Sith was easily the best of the three prequels, but only because the first two were so horrible. Relying upon advanced CGI and special effects to bail itself out, the final chapter in the Star Wars rebirth ended with dazzling fight scenes and a whining Anakin Skywalker who would forever diminish the Dark Lord of sci-fi, Darth Vader. Compare this to Star Trek. Star Trek blew people away with season after season of adventure, romance, and sci-fi ecstasy. Then it pumped out 5 spin-off series that each dominated for years. The animated series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine. All of these became staples of sci-fi programming, owing their success to the original and foundational concept of Star Trek. WHLE this constant evolution was taking place. Star Trek managed to create 11 feature-length films over 30 years. Star Trek the Motion Picture, The Wrath of Khan, The Search for Spock, The Voyage Home, The Final Frontier, The Undiscovered Country, Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis all pushed the franchise forward with original characters, compelling plot lines, and ever-heightening special effects. As if that wasn't enough, the series did an entire reboot in 2009 with a whole new cast. Paying homage to the original Star Trek characters while remaining fresh and unique in the eyes of even the most orthodox of old guard fans. Conclusion: while Star Wars blew the doors off entering the world stage, it has only decayed as time has passed. Star Trek, on the other hand, has moved forward and by all perceptions is only getting better. Ask yourself this: whose best days are still ahead of them? Star Wars or Star Trek?
1. You are arguing that Star Wars capitalized on the space race of the era when truthfully the space race ended in 1975, a full 2 years after A New Hope was released. Sure, space was still a hot topic, but not nearly as publicized during that time. Compare this to Star Trek, which debuted in 1966 during the height of the space race, and you can clearly see which series capitalized on the era. 2. The 2009 reboot of Star Trek may have paid great homage to the original Star Trek characters in some aspects, but ultimately it destroyed the continuity of the original series and showed that the Star Trek universe is non-consequential. One film proved that 40 years of history could be rewritten within a 2-hour film. 3. While Star Trek may have had one film to showcase its self-reinvention, Star Wars has had 30 years of continued success through films, TV shows, merchandising, and a dedicated fan base. While fans may not agree on the merits of the prequels, Lucas proved that he was reinventing his universe for a brand new generation by targeting the demographic he initially found success with. Sure, Jar Jar Binks is one of the worst characters in movie history, and Anakin Skywalker had amazingly terrible dialogue, but if you really watch the original 3, you'll notice that the characters were just as cheesy and Mark Hamill's acting wasn't much better. Lucas was merely paying homage to him. Conclusion: you argue that Star Trek has reinvented itself while Star Wars has not. I argue the opposite in the fact that Star Wars is reinventing itself to a brand new generation of children through a TV show, action figures and novels.